to Beans and Breakdowns, a podcast dedicated to bridging the gap between specialty coffee and the heavy music community. Today on the podcast, I'm joined by Paul Waggoner of the band Between the Buried and Me. Paul is also the head roaster and founder of Nightflyer Roastworks, a coffee roaster based in Charlotte, North Carolina. He has a wealth of knowledge concerning coffee roasting and the coffee industry in general, as well as years of experience in the music world. So grab a fresh cup of coffee and wake the fuck up! All right, how's it going, caffeinated crew? I'm here with Paul Waggoner from the band Between the Buried and Me, but what a lot of people don't know is that he has a roaster called Nightflyer Roasters out of Charlotte, North Carolina. And so I've got him on the podcast today to speak about coffee and about metal, which is what this podcast is all about. Paul, how are you?
I'm doing great, man. Down here in Charlotte, North Carolina, trying to weather the stifling humidity, but doing great otherwise.
Yeah, the sun is so bright behind you. It's like a...
Yeah, I always do these things out here on my screen porch, and this is probably not the best time of day because the sun is right back there, but it's much better than doing it inside where I have dogs like running around and barking and, you know, wife's doing laundry and all kinds of stuff's going on. So
right. Well, I appreciate you coming on the podcast with such a nice day. I'm sure there's lots of stuff you could be doing.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I love doing stuff like this. So thanks for having me.
So Beans and Breakdowns, we're talking about metal, hardcore music. We're talking about coffee. Let's start with the coffee. What are you drinking right now?
Right now, I'm actually drinking an Ecuadorian coffee from a farm called Coco Caja, which is actually owned by a family that has North Carolina ties. So we try to like establish as many direct relationships as we can with our sourcing. And surprisingly, there's like a lot of local connections that we've made just in the Charlotte area of people that have family farms in like Latin American countries. So a brother, sister, primarily that operate Coco Caja, and Anna and her brother Nicholas, and they're super cool. And they do great coffees, super small lots. And this one in particular is a honey process Typica variety. And it's just like super sweet. You know, occasionally you'll get those coffees. There's not like a ton of like nuance or anything, like a really complex, you know, it's not like super duper complex, but it's just like super sweet and pleasant. And you can just drink it all day long, you know? So it's just it's like a sugary coffee, kind of like I get like notes of like almost like caramelized pears or something like that. You know, it's just super pleasant. It's like an everyday, like really good coffee. So it's tricky. I will say it's tricky to roast. They're very like small beans, like super dense, but very small beans. So they require like a little extra love in the roaster, but it's an awesome coffee. And we serve this at our cafe right now.
So that was roasted not on your Ikawa. It was roasted on your...
No, this was definitely roasted on. We got a US roaster core. Shop roasters. So
awesome.
That's what we do. Everything we roast in like 11 to 12 pound batches. And that's what we do all our production roasts on right now.
Yeah. I love the sticker on the side. It just says "fuck yeah coffee."
The "fuck yeah coffee" sticker. Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's my, like, when I go in, I, you know, remind myself that like, sometimes you know, when it can be a little laborious, since the coffee business is a tough business, you may or may not be aware, but yeah, I see that sticker sometimes and I'm like, yeah, fuck yeah, coffee.
That's what it's about. Fuck yeah, coffee.
It puts it all in perspective for me, you know? So.
Well, I'm drinking a washed Ethiopian from it's a Quebec roaster out of Sherbrooke. It's from Hubert St-Jean. This particular Ethiopian is from the Guji region, and it is just a lot of honey, a lot of berries with some tea and floral flavor in there. But overall, you know, just that classic Guji Ethiopian, just a ton of berry, like so much berries.
Wow. Yeah, usually you get those with the natural Ethiopias. You get the very pronounced, like fermented, like kind of ripe berry notes. It's nice to get it from a washed coffee because it's nice to get those notes and still have it be like a very clean coffee, which I'm sure that one is. So that sounds awesome.
I V60 everything for the most part. That's like just I use that James Hoffman method. I don't know if you're familiar with that. Yeah. So it's just so easy. Yeah. I do it with every coffee and I feel like it gets me the best result. So, yeah.
I'm a lazy brewer, man. I'm an AeroPress guy all day long.
Oh man. So I do it at work. I AeroPress at work because I'm like the weirdo with the scale, like the pocket scale and the AeroPress. And everybody's like, whose coffee shit is this?
What is this device? Yeah.
Hello. Sorry.
No, I'm an AeroPress guy. I love the AeroPress, man. It just makes a small cup and it's like perfect for me. So I actually I'm terrible at V60. Like I know I'm like a coffee professional or whatever. I struggle mightily with the V60. I get very good brews consistently with the Chemex, but for some reason the V60 I can't seem to find that perfect balance, where I'm getting like a properly extracted coffee. So I kudos to you. I'm jealous that you're able to get a nice brew with the V60. I'm terrible at it. My V60 is like buried in the back of my cabinet. With
the mocha pot, with your mocha pot back there too, that hasn't been used in 20 years.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I started. I think that's why V60 for me is like my favorite, because when I started in my barista job back, I mean, I guess not many moons ago, but a few moons ago, it was V60 shop. We didn't use for anything other than manual drip. So that was kind of my introduction to pour over. I know a lot of people that have been in coffee longer. They prefer Chemex. I don't have a lot of love for the taste for some reason. It's a totally
different. Yeah. I mean, aside from it being a pour over, it's completely different. The Chemex is such a thick filter. You grind obviously much coarser. It's a totally different.
Yeah.
They're not the same at all. So yeah, right there with you.
So you've been roasting for a while. What inspired you to start roasting on your own?
Well, really, it was. I mean, I got into coffee through music. I'm not a drinker. I don't drink alcohol. So coffee became like the thing to do on tour. And I probably got into coffee similarly to a lot of other people, which was like Starbucks. Quite frankly, just. And I didn't even like coffee. When I was in my 20s, I thought it was disgusting. So I would go to Starbucks and be like, well, I'll get a hot chocolate with soy milk or something. And then before you know it, I'm like, well, I'll try this mocha, which is just a hot chocolate. I mean, at Starbucks, a mocha tastes like a hot chocolate anyway. Exactly. So it just has the espresso buried deep in the chasms of the drink somewhere. Yeah, I got that, and I was drinking that for a while. And then I was like, well, I'll try the vanilla latte, where you can taste a little bit of the espresso. And I was like, well, this is still kind of gross, but I can drink it because it's sweet or whatever. And then I think one time they accidentally forgot to put the vanilla in, and I really tasted the espresso at Starbucks. And I was like, yeah, this is not very good. Like, why do people drink this? But then at that point I was already in, I was drinking caffeine or whatever. So I think it just eventually I stumbled across like a specialty cafe on tour. I don't even remember where it was. It may not even been in the United States actually, but at any rate, like I had good coffee, finally. And I was like, whoa, this is different. Like this is coffee, lighter roasted, much more like flavor, sweeter, not bitter. I was like, wow, this is good. So that kind of led me on the path. And then because I'm kind of I like to get into the nuts and bolts of things sometimes. I think before I knew it, I was like, well, let me learn about coffee a little bit, just I felt like it was the responsible thing to do, especially as an American. I was like, well, we consume this product every day. We don't grow it, we don't produce coffee, with the exception of Hawaii, which produces a very small amount of coffee, which nobody really drinks. So I was like, let me just learn about it, learn where it's grown, what it's all about. And then before I knew it, I had like a home roast, a little hot top, like a roaster. And I was, roasting a couple 100 grams of coffee back out on the screen porch with like smoke and chaff flying everywhere. And, but, that's really how I started. I kind of learned about the roasting process and how it can add value, or not necessarily add value, but it's component of the process that is super duper important. You can destroy a really good coffee in the roasting drum. So I kind of learned how to roast coffee, screwed up a lot of batches along the way, but kind of learned my chops. And then, and then I was like, I kind of want to like see if I can start like a little business, and just do it for kind of fun, something to do when I'm not on tour. And, I've been kind of messing around with it ever since. And eventually we opened a cafe, and then now we have another location, and we're getting ready to open a third location. So there's just it just kind of happened. Once the ball was rolling, it was hard to stop it,
Right.
But I definitely got into it through music. And really, honestly, I've learned most of what I've learned about coffee is through traveling and just tasting it in different places and seeing how it's treated differently in various parts of the world. I've been very fortunate to have been able to experience that, and that's something I'm super thankful for. And that really kind of drives my passion for it still. I still do kind of all my R&D when I'm playing music and traveling. So
speaking of, traveling and music, I know that you've done some collaborations with like Pliny and most recently, I guess, Lamb of God with Memento Mori and the Overlord. How does that kind of come? Like, what's the process of getting the collaboration rolling?
Well, I mean, it's probably a lot more simple than people think. I think bands just are, looking for, and I can say this with authenticity because I'm in that world as well. So bands are just looking for ways to monetize their brand as much as possible. The music now is almost worthless. The music is just the vehicle through which you sell other things. The live show being the big one, and t-shirts being the other big one. And then anything else you can monetize as well. So it just, coffee's, band dudes are into coffee, so they, it's just one of those things, another thing to sell. So because I'm kind of plugged into that world, they'll get a hold of me, and I'm happy to do those collaborations. It's tough because I think a lot of them don't realize how small the margins are.
Right.
So they might be like, well, I want to buy, we want to sell it for $20. So I don't want to pay any more than, they think they can get the same margins as you would get on a t-shirt.
Like a t-shirt, yeah.
It is 100% not going to happen. It can happen if you buy really crappy coffee.
Right.
But generally speaking, like most of these guys like coffee and they don't want to sell dog shit. So so I'm like, well, look, you're going to have to settle for kind of 100% margin, no more than that, which is still pretty good, but, so yeah, that's kind of how it happens. And then it varies from there, like Pliny, super into coffee. I did one for the Tesseract guys, also super into coffee. And they just wanted, that was like years ago. I've done some stuff for August Burns Red. Those are all like limited, they were like limited batch, runs or whatever, where we do like 200 bags or something, sell them, and that's it. Which actually I really enjoy doing that because again, you can kind of use a really nice coffee. And it's like I said, it's a limited thing, and those are fun to do. Lamb of God's a little different because that one kind of is ongoing. Right. That one is, same kind of thing. They're a little different. They're just like coffee guys. Like some of the dudes are into like super dark roast coffee, which I'm not into, but they wanted to do a dark roast. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to hate this, but I'll do it. You know what I mean? And so we do a dark roast for them, which I'll say this, for a dark roast, it's pretty good. It's kind of a nice, like diner. I call it diner dark, it's like a diner coffee. It's not like burnt, it's not like, doesn't taste like, asphalt or
traditional
anything,
dark.
Yeah. But like, it's in that realm of like, put a little cream and sugar. It's a cream and sugar coffee in my opinion. Right. But, and then we do a lighter roast, which is a little more nuanced. But it is tough to do those collaborations because you do have to kind of play around with the economics of it to make sure everybody's kind of, making some money on it. Which that's the bummer side of the industry, but it has to make sense economically, unfortunately. So, but those are fun to do. I like doing them.
Do they ever come to taste it during the roasting process, or is it kind of like, we have this idea, just send us the coffee when it's roasted?
Well, because of the economics of it, the options are oftentimes pretty limited, so I'm kind of like, look, I can get this coffee and keep it in that price range that you're looking for. And then from there, it's just like, I'll play around with the roast, and I'll say, here, try it. And then I'll send some samples and they, yay or nay, or pick their favorite one. That's what I did for Lamb of God. Some of the other projects I've done, they just trust me, and they give me a budget, and I'm like, okay, dope. I can get, if that's what you're willing to spend, like, I can get this natural Ethiopian and blow your minds. You know what I mean? And that's awesome. But again, the economics have to work out. And because coffee is, it's a seasonal crop. So it's like, if you want to do it long term, for example, the Lamb of God, that we continue to sell those. Again, you can't really do it with coffees that you're not going to be able to maintain that flavor profile all year long because of the seasonal nature of it. So you got to pick coffees that are easy to source, or easy to source coffees similar to those, so that you can maintain that flavor profile. So that's another kind of challenge that you have to deal with. But again, for the limited stuff, for the that's kind of, you can go kind of wild with that. You can get whatever is on the market at the time. If you can get it for the right price or whatever. So
monetizing everything is the key there.
Yeah, that's the bottom line. Basically, is bands are trying to sell whatever they can sell, especially during a pandemic. By the way,
stick your face on it and get it out there.
Exactly. People at that point, people are buying the bag more than they're buying the contents of the bag. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Some people may not even drink the coffee. I don't know. They might just put it on a shelf and it's just a keepsake or whatever. So,
well, after an exceptionally quiet year, for the most part, I know you've probably been busy with the roasting and the shop and everything. What are you looking forward to the most about getting back on the road? I noticed you guys have a tour coming up.
Yeah, we do. We have August. We're heading out. So, most of all, we're just looking forward to doing what we've been doing, for 20 plus years now. So it's been, by the time we go back on the road, it'll be 17 months or something since we played an actual live gig. So we're just looking to, kind of, it sounds probably pretty extreme, but we're excited to reclaim our identity. You know what I mean? This, having the rug kind of pulled out from under us with the pandemic and not being able to do our jobs basically, was really tough, mentally. And so we're just, I think, excited to get back to doing what we love to do.
Right.
We've all, through various ways, we've been able to, survive during this time, which is great. Our fans have been super duper supportive. They've, paid for Twitch streams and merch bundles and all that stuff. And that's, kept food on our table, and we're super grateful for that. But just from a kind of a mental health or emotional health standpoint, we cannot wait to just get back to what we do. And I think we'll have probably a renewed sense of gratitude because, you can take some things for granted. And perhaps we did. So we're just, I never thought I would be excited to live on a tour bus with a bunch of smelly dudes again. But I am. I can't wait. So I think that's the biggest thing. Is just we're just ready to get on with it.
I know everybody misses that energy. After a year of watching bands on live streams, it's awesome, but it's not the same.
No, you can't download a live show.
And metal and hardcore, it's all about being around the people, being the band and the people together. It's all a connected thing.
Yeah, it's a communal experience, and there's just nothing. There's no comparison to being in a venue, and exactly what you said. It's just I think people perhaps have taken took it for granted. So I expect to see a lot of very energetic crowds on the next tour. Yeah,
it's gonna be. I think it might be a bit out of hand, but it's gonna be great.
Yeah, for sure.
What advice would you give to people who are looking to start roasting?
That's a good question. I think number one, there's a lot of resources, free sources, as I call it,
Yes.
out there to learn almost anything. I learned a lot of kind of basic roasting technique by buying like one book and, watching YouTube videos. So there's a lot of very affordable ways to learn the theory of roasting theory and all that stuff. I almost think that's like the easy part. Like the roasting is easy because you can find, like, if you know what you like in a cup of coffee, if you know what you like to taste, it's very easy to like kind of establish a style of roasting, which, for like the coffees that we use for the cafe and stuff, they're almost all roasted relatively, not the same, but like kind of, like they're all kind of in the same like degree of roast. Like they all kind of sit in that sort of light to medium realm. Within that, there's obviously ways to manipulate the roast profile to bring out certain flavors and stuff. But again, you develop a style and that's just kind of how you roast. That's the way it is for me anyway. I think the hardest part of it is just the business part of it, like just the kind of the rugged nature of making it work financially. Right. It's a turbulent market. It's a tough market. There is still an issue of, at least in our market, in the Charlotte market, there's kind of like a ceiling at which the customer perceives quality. You know what I mean? So to me, like, I would love to buy a $10 a pound green coffee, but I can't sell it for enough on the retail side to make it work. You know what I mean? Because nobody's going to pay $30 for a 12-ounce bag of beans in my shop. A few will, but for the most part, like people, they're not going to. Right. It doesn't taste good enough to justify that price. So that's a challenge that we deal with in this industry. So yeah, I think the toughest part of it, the biggest challenge, and you can only learn it by doing it, by getting in there, getting in the dirt, so to speak, and learning your market, learning your local market, learning your wholesale market, learning your retail market, and determining like what works, what kind of coffees can you source, how much can you pay for a green coffee, how much can you sell it for, all that stuff. That's the challenging part, and that's ongoing, and it will always be that way because, as you may know, coffee prices change. Yeah. The C price changes, and that does affect the specialty market, even though, we kind of circumvent the commodity market in a lot of ways, but it's all intertwined. And climate, climate plays a role, if it's a bad season, so there's just a lot of variables. And the one thing that kind of doesn't change is the final sort of point of sale consumer price. There's still like a ceiling at which you can sell the stuff for. So no matter what happens in the supply chain, the average customer is only going to be willing to pay a couple bucks for a cup of 12-ounce cup of coffee. So that's like the harshest reality of the whole thing. The actual like roasting and all that stuff, that to me, that's kind of like, it's kind of the easy part, and the fun part as well. It's everything else that like sucks. And I don't have a sort of concise, advice for that. You just have to like kind of get in there and do it, because it depends on where you're at and what kind of market you're dealing with, and those variables are hard to predict. And so, yeah, that part of it's really difficult.
So get your hands dirty. That's
yeah, you got to just get in there and make, and it's, I would say that's almost a universal thing with a lot of things. It's easy to learn the technique of doing something. It's when you get out there and you have to like make it work in a real world scenario, under the thumb of like,
that's when you get the stress test.
Brutal capitalism. You know what I mean? Like that's the ultimate stress test. Like, can you come up with a business model that is sustainable? Like that's a real thing. You know what I mean? Whether you're a band or a coffee roaster or whatever you're trying to do, it's hard.
Well, thanks for the that advice.
Or non-advice.
I mean, it's advice.
Okay, cool.
I like to close the podcast out with it's like the classic beans and breakdowns question. From anywhere in the world, because I know you've traveled all over, what has been your favorite location for beans and breakdowns?
Like, I don't. For beans, my favorite coffee place, bar none, is like Scandinavian countries, Norway, Denmark, Sweden. Those are like, if I were going to like kind of name my favorite roasters, they would all be from there. It'd be like Coffee Collective in Copenhagen. It would be like Tim Wendelboe in Oslo. Drop Coffee Roasters in Stockholm. Like there's just, they roast coffee really light. But it's just, I don't know. I still don't know what they do. Like they do something special with the way it's roasted that is amazing. And I don't know that it would work on a grand scale in America, because Americans tend to like more robust kind of coffees. But man, those are my favorites. Absolutely. And also, there's some dope metal that has come out of those countries too. So they got something cool going on for sure in those countries on both fronts.
So we'll just say Scandinavia is the broad sense.
I mean, I would love to pick an individual country in those groups, but it's really, in general, I think the Scandinavian coffee culture is it's going to be tough to beat, and like. Especially like, I think, and that's band wide. My bandmates would probably all agree, like Coffee Collective in Copenhagen, they're hard to touch, man. I mean, like they just, no matter what you like to drink, if you want a Kalita Wave or whatever, they're going to brew the best one you've ever had. If you want a flat white, it's probably going to be the best one you've ever had. So they're awesome. And they're also like super, like, everything's sourced like super ethically. They've built amazing relationships with farmers around the world. So they do everything right. It's kind of annoying, actually. There's like the perfect business.
Right. I know I watch European Coffee Trip a lot, that YouTube channel where they do a lot of like educational brewing and stuff like that. And it's like, I don't know how they know so much, and they like are so ready to kind of educate people as well on like ethically sourced,
for sure,
roasting. Yeah,
I mean, those cultures are super transparent about their for one thing, they're super culinarily inclined, I think. Yeah. And they're also very transparent about it. So yeah, but that's a cool thing, is they treat coffee as like a culinary experience. You know what I mean? Whereas in America, for the most part, it's a drug. Yeah. You know what I mean? People just like, I gotta get my cup of coffee before I start my day. But over there, it's very experiential. They have coffee in the middle of the day. It's like, it's almost as a tradition. So, and they're very into the taste of it. They're not trying to, just suck it down, or by putting a lot of sugar and cream into it. The product itself is very highly regarded and respected as again, like a culinary delicacy,
Yeah. As a third waver, it's my goal to go over there and try that, because I know third wave here is kind of expanding, but they've been on that third wave for like 10 years already.
Yeah, I mean, it's just normal to them. Yeah. I don't even know if they call it third wave. To them, it's just coffee, But yeah, if it's totally worth it, if you had to pick one place, go to Copenhagen, because it's a dope ass city anyway. It's an amazing city. And find your way over to Coffee Collective, and just, I mean, it's unlike any place else, So, and I've been to a lot of them, I'm telling you. So,
well, thank you so much for your insights, for coming on, taking time to come on and talk to me and the Caffeinated crew about your experience in coffee. Talking about getting back on the road and everything. I really appreciate you coming on.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. Thanks for pushing the coffee and music marriage via podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day, and good luck with the tour coming up and everything.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Cheers. Thanks for listening to this episode of Beans and Breakdowns. I'd like to give a huge shout out to Paul for taking the time to speak with me about coffee roasting, the coffee industry, and metal music. Be sure to check out Nightflyer Roastworks online, and also check out Between the Buried and Me's newest singles, Fix the Error and Revolution in Limbo. They're out now, available on all listening platforms. If you've enjoyed the podcast, please subscribe and leave a review. Also, to keep up with guest announcements, merch releases, and just general info, check us out on Instagram at Beans and Breakdowns, and also on the web at beansandbreakdowns.com. Thanks again for tuning into Beans and Breakdowns. And until next week, stay caffeinated and wake the fuck up.